Exposed. 13 spine-chilling public transportation horrors that will haunt your dreams forever. The bus pulled into the stop like a beast emerging from shadow, lights flickering in an unsettling march of brightness against the dim night. Sarah shivered, wrapping her arms tighter around herself as the cold seeped through her jacket. She glanced at the time, willing the seconds to speed up. Night after night, she rode home from her double shifts, tired but hopeful for a better tomorrow for her daughter, Lily. Yet tonight felt different, darker somehow. A man loitered nearby, standing too close, his eyes trained on her with a cold intensity that twisted her stomach. She wanted to look away, to dismiss her instincts as paranoia, but his gaze was like ice, slicing through her resolve. There was something off about him, a predator lurking in the shadows of her suburban haven. Just when she thought he couldn't get any closer, he shifted, his silhouette merging with the night. Every evening dragged on, each lonely bus ride creeping her out. They were being invaded by his stillness, his unyielding presence a specter she couldn't escape, even in the crowd. But it was the text that sent chill after chill racing down her spine while she waited one night. "I see you," with only a question mark sign below. Panic seized her. The bus stop, once her refuge, now felt like a trap. She needed a plan, but all she felt was dread. Gradually, those once friendly faces around her began to morph too. Brenda from next door, who always waved, now threw piercing glances that made the hair on the back of Sarah's neck stand up. Whispers and hushed tones faded as Sarah entered common spaces. A dark undercurrent shifted and shifted. Neighbors exchanged glances when she passed by, their seemingly innocent smiles now twisted like a noose tightening around her. She stumbled onto the missing women's cases, brushed off by the police as mere paranoia. But something deeper hinted at a connection, a grotesque underbelly she had failed to see in her once peaceful neighborhood. Even more unsettling was discovering that 2 local officers were tied to dubious figures, known to have a predilection for women who walked alone at night. The realization felt like icy fingers squeezing her throat. Could they be linked to the evil she sensed? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, emerging from her fears, armed with scraps of abandoned hope and determined to find the truth, she witnessed him again, the man she had come to dread. He leaned against a streetlight, cloaked in darkness, and just below him, the pavement bore a symbol she thought was just legend. An unholy mark that sent ice flooding through her veins. Panic twisted her gut as the atmosphere thickened. Was this the neighborhood she thought she knew? The truth clawed at her mind, an awareness that they weren't just monsters living in the shadows. It was the very walls of her home that concealed them. A sickening realization bore down on her. She had no idea where her safety lay. Just as she thought of retreating, the bus growled softly in the distance. And she asked herself, was this the end of the line, or just the beginning of a nightmare she couldn't escape? The bus rolled to a stop, the doors hissing open. Sarah hesitated, glancing back at the man under the streetlight. His face was shadowed, eyes glinting in the faint light, a predator-esque gaze piercing through her. She felt a magnetic pull, but she was more afraid than drawn. Heart racing, she stepped onto the bus, the familiar hum of the engine a weak comfort. Inside, the flickering lights painted harrowing shadows on the faces of the few passengers. Lined seats staring back at her like empty threats. She chose one at the rear, hoping to disappear into the dullness. But as the bus lurched forward, her gaze darted back to the window, her mind struggling to process. The man was gone, swallowed by darkness, or perhaps he had just stepped into the deeper shadows of the night. The bus moved, seemingly mocking her with its rattling charm. The driver's face was a mask of indifference, eyes focused forward as if the world outside was none of his concern. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the streets were hiding something monstrous. Next stop, Maple and Oak, the driver announced in a monotone voice. Maple and Oak was closer to home, but suddenly, it felt like doom approaching. The bus slowed, grinding to a halt. Memories of missing posters, the faces of women with terrified smiles flooded her mind. Each one like a siren, screaming warnings she had ignored before. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the visions away. Maybe they were just coincidences. The doors slid open with an eerie groan, and a figure boarded. A woman, her face half hidden under a hood, stepped in with a hasty glance around. Ignoring the empty seats up front, she chose the one right across from Sarah. The woman settled in, the tension in the air thickening like fog. "Hey," the woman said, her voice shaky but urgent. "You're being watched." The words struck with the force of a slap. Sarah's heart plummeted, and she shot a glance at the rearview mirror. The driver's expression remained unchanged, but dread crawled under her skin. How did she know? Who is watching me?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Fear clawed at her thoughts, unraveling the fragile threads of her composure. "There are places you shouldn't go," the woman cautioned, casting nervous glances over her shoulder. "Keep your head down. It's not safe." Before she could probe further, the bus jolted and the lights flickered ominously. Shadows danced across the floor, and Sarah felt the pull of something dark in the corners of her mind. The woman leaned closer, urgency in her voice. "Trust no one, it's happening again." Just then, the bus veered unexpectedly, tires screeching against the asphalt. Sarah's fingers dug into the armrest. "What?" The driver turned abruptly, his gaze sharp and hungry through the rearview mirror. "Get off at the next stop. You'll be safe there." Instinct screamed for her to run, but something deeper rooted her to the seat. The bus lurched again as they rounded a corner, but the streets outside had warped into unfamiliar alleys. They weren't heading towards Maple and Oak. Dread unfurled like a long-forgotten nightmare. The woman's expression shifted, horror etched deep into her features. "No, you can't take her there. It's too late." Cabin pressure intensified and the air felt charged with danger. The next stop blurred into uncertainty, and a palpable sense of dread enveloped Sarah. Something was luring her closer to the dark, pulling the strings tighter around her neck as the bus screeched to a halt. Sarah's knees buckled. She had to choose. Get off, unravel this mystery, or stay locked in this vehicle, spiraling toward terror. Outside the wind howled, sharp as a knife, beckoning her into the night. The door swung open, revealing an abyss that slowly swallowed sound. What choice would she make that moment, teetering between safety and something far more sinister? The night awaited her, dark and terrible. The air outside bore a strange stillness, wrapping around Sarah like a wet blanket, suffocating even as the chill bit at her skin. The door of the bus hung open, inviting yet threatening, a portal to unknown horrors. The woman's frantic gaze bore into her, lips moving in silent pleas. Could she trust her, or was she another player in this dreadful game? "Go," the woman hissed, urgency lacing her tone. "You have to." But before she could finish, the driver slammed the door shut with a jarring clang. "Next stop is not where you want to be," he said, his voice low, almost gravelly now, echoing off the metallic interiors of the bus as it shuddered back into motion. Fear burst inside Sarah like fireworks, each pop louder than the last. She cursed herself for not getting off while she had the chance, for hesitating in the face of impending doom. Hot blood rushed to her head, the smell of fear oily in her nostrils. The woman was still looking at her, eyes wide and frantic. "I can help you, but you have to trust me," she pleaded, glancing towards the front of the bus, as if she sensed danger lingering just beyond the driver's gaze. "Help me?" Sarah's voice creaked, echoing her uncertainty. "How? You're just as trapped as I am." "Not quite." The woman leaned closer, the tension rising. "I've seen what lurks in these shadows. You can outrun it, but you have to act quickly." "How do you know about me?" The question dangled in the air, heavy and filled with accusation. "Because it's happening again. It feeds here." She jerked her head towards the darkened windows, as if she could already see the threat crawling just outside, clawing for entry. "It's not just you, it's come for me, too." Sarah's heart raced, the sound of it drumming in her ears, drowning out the faint rumble of the bus wheels on the road. She wished she could see what lay beyond the glass, but whoever or whatever hunted them had the advantage of darkness. The lights flickered again, and the woman's eyes reflected the uncertainty. "We need to get off," she urged, "before it gets worse." Suddenly, the bus swerved again, sending Sarah sprawling. Her breath hitched as she landed harshly against the seat, hands hitting cold metal. The roar of the engine drowned out her thoughts as the bus barreled onward. "Stop this!" Sarah screamed at the driver, but he didn't flinch. His grip on the wheel remained steady, like a puppet master controlling every twist and turn. "Let us off." "Shut up," he barked, eyes darting to the rearview mirror as if he sensed something behind them. Sarah breathed in deep, dread pooling like ice in her stomach. They were trapped in a metal can, racing into hell, and she could feel the darkness closing in around her. Her thoughts whipped around her mind, a cyclone of desperation. "Look!" the woman screamed suddenly, pointing out the window. Sarah's gaze snapped toward the glass, and her stomach dropped. Shadows lunged toward them, twisting and writhing, barely discernible figures moving with unholy intent. They had arrived. Whatever lurked in the depths of the night had found them. "We need to jump," the woman shouted, the panic now infectious. "What are you, insane?" Fear took hold of Sarah harder than before. She pressed against the seat, eyes wide and frantic. "Now!" the woman yelled, and with a swift movement, she unlatched the window. The bus began to shudder again, as though the outside forces were pressing against it, eager to break through. A howl of wind screamed through the gap, mingling with desperate cries. Sarah's breathing quickened, the minute dragging like an eternity. Would she take the leap, plunge into the unknown, or allow herself to be swallowed whole by the encroaching evil? The two women stood at the precipice of a life-altering choice as the darkness clamored outside for their surrender. Would the leap lead to liberation or doom? The bus lurched violently again, rattling Sarah's bones as the shadows pressed in closer, eager claws dancing just beyond the glass. Terror clawed at her throat. The woman's face was a mask of desperation, and the dim light flickering overhead played tricks on her features, casting her as both savior and villain. "Jump!" the woman cried again, urgency spilling over like a wave. Her hands gripped the windowsill, knuckles white, as she peered into the night, her breath a frantic chant. Sarah's mind raced. The darkness outside was alive, shifting like smoke, whispering secrets in a language she couldn't understand. She wanted to scream but found her voice lost in a dizzying whirl of fear. "What are those things?" she managed, shaking her head as if that would dispel the echoes of shadows stretching along the asphalt. "They're drawn to fear. They thrive on it. If we stay, they'll..." The woman's voice caught, eyes wide. "You have to trust me." They were two helpless souls against whatever haunted them in the night, and it seemed the only way out was through broken glass and uncertainty. Adrenaline surged, propelling Sarah closer to the window, hands trembling over the latch. Just then, a thunk echoed from the back of the bus. The driver's eyes bulged in the mirror, reflecting something that left a dark imprint of dread in her chest. Sarah stole a glimpse over her shoulder, and her breath turned to ice. A dark figure, twisted and elongated, pressed against the rear window with a grotesque smile, which could only be described as hungry. Instinct kicked in. "Now!" she shouted, slamming the latch open. The wind swept in like a banshee, nearly swallowing her whole. Glancing back at the woman, terror mirrored in their eyes. Sarah could see she was not the only one afraid of plunging into the unknown. But they had no choice. "On three," Sarah called out, gripping the window frame, her heart pounding in synchrony with the chaos around them. 1, 2. The woman hesitated, but Sarah couldn't wait. 3. With that, she lunged, sending herself into the night, arms outstretched. The feeling of weightlessness swallowed her, the ground rushing up to meet her. Sarah hit the earth hard, rolling to absorb the impact. The world was a cacophony of wind, screams, and that terrible shrouded figure still clawing on the bus door. "Get up!" the woman's voice cut through, sharp and desperate. Sarah scrambled to her feet, the chilling realization that the leap had not freed her, but simply escalated their nightmare. They were now in the grip of unholy darkness, and shadows writhed around them like vipers ready to strike. Over here, the woman yelled, leading the way toward the tree-line, dark and welcoming. But that shadow from the bus wasn't far behind. Its laughter, a sickening sound that made Sarah's skin crawl. Branches snapped as they plunged into the thicket, the ground uneven and rough beneath their feet. Each step felt like a countdown the closer they got to whatever lay ahead. The more the shadows seemed to pulse with malicious energy. Behind them, the bus came to a sudden stop with an ear-splitting screech. Headlights cut through the trees, trembling, encircling them like a pack of wolves. Sarah risked a glance back, and what she saw sent her heart racing anew. The driver stood outside, illuminated by the harsh beam, but he was no longer just a man. His form twisted and distorted, eyes dark and soulless, a smile too wide to be human. "They're coming," the woman whispered, fear mirrored in her own wide-eyed expression. "We're not safe yet." Panic surged through Sarah. The trees loomed ahead, but there was nowhere to hide. "Where do we go?" she gasped, desperation spilling from her. The woman didn't answer. Instead, her gaze was locked on something further in the woods, a glimmer of hope or a new horror. "What are you seeing?" Sarah urged, but before the woman could respond, a shuddering roar echoed through the trees. A ripple of pure dread twisted the air, turning it electric as something massive shifted in the shadows. They weren't alone, the real nightmare was only just beginning. Would they escape the grasp of the darkness? Or were they destined to join the lost souls forever lurking under the weight of night? Their footfalls were frantic as the woman pulled Sarah deeper into the woods. The shadows tangled around them like living vines, tightening with each step, inviting screams that never left their throats. "Keep moving," the woman urged, her eyes darting, nerves frayed. Sarah followed, breath hitching as they plunged into the dark. She could feel the oppressive weight of the night bearing down upon her, almost tangible. Their surroundings shifted. Trees creaked and groaned as if they were alive, witnesses to her spiraling terror. Branches clawed at her arms, scratching her skin, snagging her clothes with every hurried stride. Beastly laughter echoed from behind, bouncing off the trunks of trees, feeding their terror. "What's chasing us?" Sarah gasped, the chilling air seeping into her lungs, stinging like ice. "They live in our fear. They want to consume it to consume us," the woman panted, her voice a quiver. Sarah's heart raced louder than the frantic footsteps, and an ache blossomed in her chest. The silent invitation of darkness loomed. Suddenly, the deep thud of something monstrous echoed through the woods. The sound vibrated underfoot. It was near, too near. "We need to find somewhere to hide," she yelled, eyes searching the shadows, wishing for a sanctuary, a cave, even a tree hole. Anything but the open where those inhuman eyes could find them. "There." The woman pointed towards a thick cluster of bushes. Without thinking, they dove into the underbrush, praying it would conceal them. In the cramped darkness, breath mingled, and the acrid scent of damp earth filled their nostrils. Heartbeats thudded like war drums in the silence, and the shadows seemed to press in, crawling over the foliage to claim them. The creaturesque laughter filled the air again, a high-pitched cackle that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "Faster! Faster! Don't you want to play?" The voice was shrill and mocking, echoing through the trees. It felt impossibly close, almost hovering just outside their hiding space. "Stay quiet," the woman hissed, pressing her finger to her lips. But it was too late. Each breath felt like a spotlight in the darkness. Panic surged through Sarah, pulse racing. The ground trembled again. Another thunderous roar ripped through the silence, powerful and primal. Something big was pushing through the woods, fierce and hungry. "Stay still." The woman gritted her teeth. Sarah nodded, heart in her throat. Fear flooded her thoughts, dark tendrils spiraling deeper and deeper, trapping her mind in a maze of horrors. She could almost see shadows reaching, grasping fingers reaching for her, clawing away at her sanity. Then the laughter stopped. A heavy silence fell, thick like fog. What happened? Sarah whispered, terror straining her voice. The woman shifted, peeking out from the cluster of branches. I don't know. It could be gone. Just then, a low growl rumbled from outside their hiding place. The very air felt charged, electric with malice. Sarah's heart pounded in sync with the ragged breaths of her companion. We need to move now, the woman urged, rising from their cramped refuge. Before Sarah could react, a thin flash of white zoomed past them. An arm, an elongated appendage, that of the twisted figure, reached through the bushes. No! Sarah screamed, feeling the shadowy fingers brush her arm. She ripped away and stumbled backward, searching for escape, for light, for anything but what loomed close. But then, a growl that sent chills down her spine echoed once more, followed by a voice from behind them. You can't escape, not now. Sarah's heart dropped. The voice was different, softer, yet chillingly familiar. An unwelcome memory flooding back as the darkness clung to her. The woman turned sharply. Run! She shouted before the darkness surged. They burst from their hideout, though Sarah could feel the tendrils of shadows wrap around her ankles, slowing her. Conclusion loomed on their horizon, but which way led to salvation? The line between hunter and prey was thinning, and the shadows whispered of a choice Sarah could never foresee. What did she leave behind when she jumped? The silhouettes in the woods clamored for her soul, and the truth awaited her just beyond the tree-line. Was the escape truly another trap, or merely another step into the depths of despair? They stumbled into a clearing, breathless and wide-eyed. The moon hung overhead, a ghostly face illuminating the chaos swirling around them. For a moment, the silence was deafening, but shadows were still lurking, ever eager and waiting. Sarah could see the woman's eyes darting like fireflies, struggling to maintain focus. Where do we go now? Sarah whispered, panting heavily. She could almost feel the presence of something watching, lingering just beyond the trees. A whisper of cold air ran down her spine, prickling her skin. Over there. The woman gestured frantically to an old abandoned shack half hidden by thorny bushes. We can't stay out here. They hurried toward the building, each creak from their steps sounding like thunder in the stillness. The door sagged on its hinges, a dark, gaping mouth. Inside, cobwebs hung like thick curtains, and the air was stale like it had been holding its breath for years. Close the door, the woman urged. Sarah obeyed, the wood groaning in protest as it shut out the night and sealed in their fear. Do you think they saw us? Sarah's voice cracked, the weight of dread mounting. She scanned the dim room, taking in the shadows that danced along the walls, twisting like tortured souls. A sudden clatter erupted from the corner. Her heart nearly stopped. The woman turned and lunged toward the source of the noise, an old, rusted kettle that had fallen from a shelf. Just an old piece of junk, the woman sighed, brushing sweat from her brow. But we need to be quiet. That was when they heard it. A slow, deliberate scraping sound, like nails against wood, echoing from the outside. The darkness seemed to pulse around the shack, thrumming with anticipation. They aren't gone, Sarah blurted, her mind racing. What do? We hide, the woman whispered, gripping Sarah's arm tightly. They squeezed into a tiny space behind the rickety furniture, the air thickening as they pressed against each other. All they could hear was the sound of their own breathing and that incessant scraping, getting closer. Then, out of the murk came the laughter again, piercing and cruel, slicing through the night. It mixed with the scraping, creating a monstrous rhythm. I can smell you, taunted, the voice dripping with malice. Come out and play. The woman covered Sarah's mouth with a clammy hand, eyes wide and fearful. Don't, she hissed, shaking her head slowly. But Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the thrum of terror vibrating in her bones. The shadows at the window stretched and danced, and her throat tightened. She needed to see. I have to know, she whispered, moving to peek through a crack between the worn boards. What she saw made her blood freeze. A figure stood outside, its eyes hollow pits of darkness, swirling and endless. It giggled softly, a sound that made her skin crawl. "Are you in there? I just want to play," it sang. Then, in a sudden surge of clarity, Sarah saw it. The shadow didn't have just a mouth. It had many lining its arms and chest, each one twisted into a smile that held no warmth. They opened and closed with an unholy glee, hungry for what they craved. The woman stiffened beside her. "Sarah, no," she breathed, but it was too late. The door rattled violently, the sound causing them both to jump. The figure, now animated, darted toward them, its many mouths forming chilling words. "I can entice you with wish, or let you scream forever." With a wild pressure building in her chest, desperation driving her, Sarah gripped the woman's hand. "We need to run." At that moment, the door burst open. An explosion of splintered wood flying toward them. Shadow swarmed like a tidal wave, reaching for their throats. Holding onto each other, they bolted from their hideout, the echoes of laughter growing louder, drowning them in pure panic. Adrenaline surged through Sarah's veins as they broke free into the open air. But the darkened woods felt like a trap, violent and unyielding. "Where do we go? What do we do?" The woman shouted, fear etched across her face. But even from behind, they could hear the creature's voice, a silky, sinister whisper curling around them. "You can't run from your fate, it will find you." And as panic spiraled into pure chaos, Sarah could feel the very ground beneath her begin to shift, pulling them deeper into its grip. Just when she thought hope was lost, a flicker of light caught her attention, flickering in the distance, a beacon amid the encroaching shadows. But would it be salvation or another illusion designed to draw them deeper into despair? With no other choice, they sprinted toward it, praying that the end wouldn't leave them hanging by a thread. The light flickered like a dying star, drawing them in with a cruel promise of safety. Sarah felt her pulse race as they darted through the tangled underbrush, the laughter behind them peeling away like the bark of an ancient tree. Every crackle of twigs underfoot felt loaded, fear coiling tighter around her throat with every hurried step. "What if it's a trap?" The woman's voice trembled. Sarah glanced at her, a question in her eyes. They both understood the darkness that pursued them was filled with tricks and deceit, but they needed hope. "We have to try," she urged, desperation edging her tone as they pushed on. "It's better than staying in hiding, right?" The flickering light danced ahead, now accompanied by a soft humming that wriggled into their ears. It wrapped around them like a warm blanket, sweet and inviting. But they knew better, every fiber of their being screamed a warning. And yet, as the shadows twisted and turned behind them, desperation took the wheel as they burst into the clearing. The light revealed an old station. Worn benches lined the platform, and rusted train tracks stretched into the void, swallowed by the night. The source of the light was a flickering bulb hanging loosely above the platform, swaying like a pendulum marking time in a forgotten dream. "Is it even working?" the woman asked, glancing anxiously at the tracks. "We should look for a way out. Maybe it will still run," Sarah breathed, eyes wild. It was a glimmer of hope, the idea of getting away from what pursued them. The humming grew louder, now vibrating through the ground. Shadows seemed to creep closer, tongues of darkness undulating like smoke rolling into the waiting station. The echoing of footsteps caught their attention. A figure appeared at the end of the platform, silhouetted against the dim light. Sarah squinted, her heart pounded like a drum, each beat resonating with dread. "Help!" The voice was feeble, something vaguely human yet distorted. Its hollow eyes glinted with a dark sheen. "Get aboard before it comes. Is it safe?" Sarah hesitated, torn between following the voice and the irresistible pull of fear that had them already on their heels. The figure nodded eagerly, desperate. "You don't want to be left behind. It sees you, it knows." Just as Sarah took a step forward, the laughter burst forth again, louder, more penetrating than ever. The darkness around them swirled, shifting and taking shape, pulling from the night like a beast awakening hungry for prey. Every hair on Sarah's body stood on end as the creature's outline formed on the horizon. The many mouths stretched open in joy. "We need to move," The woman grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her closer. Now, they sprinted toward the figure, each hurried stride heavy with uncertainty. But it was the glowing of that singular bulb that anchored their rush, falling like a star amidst the encroaching madness. "Get inside." The figure beckoned, urgency thickening its tone. The shadows clawed at their heels as they reached for the door, but Sarah caught a glimpse of the creature in full form, a grotesque mass writhing with eyes and mouths, laughing, feasting on their fear as it whispered their names. They stumbled inside just as the door slammed shut behind them. The air inside was stale, the walls dripping with a moisture that felt like decay. The rhythmic chug and hum of the engine bounced off the walls, sending shivers down their spines. The woman pressed her back against the door, breathless. What is this place?" "I don't know," Sarah replied, heart racing. They looked around, searching for signs of safety, but finding only shadows lurking within the dim light. Then the figure stepped closer, revealing a face twisted with a grin too wide, too unnatural. "You think you're safe? The train is bound for one destination and you're running out of time." The lights flickered ominously, plunging them into darkness only to ignite again, illuminating the cruel anticipation etched into the figure's face. "You can't escape the darkness. It waits for you in that instant." The laughter from outside ceased, replaced with an oppressive silence. The shadows fell still, and dread spiraled anew in Sarah's stomach. Was this train a sanctuary, or had they merely climbed aboard a vessel destined to inherit a far worse fate? "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice trembled, a sliver of uncertainty worming its way into her resolve as uncertainty filled the air. The ominous figure smiled wider, a rictus of shadows. "Every stop has a price, and you're about to find out what awaited them at their destination." Lingered heavily, like a breath held too long. The darkness waited, maybe even closer than they realized. And so the train rattled on, and so did their fate, spiraling deeper into the unknown. The train jolted forward, lurching into motion with a grating shriek that sent vibrations through Sarah's bones. She clutched the seat next to her, eyes wide, a cold sweat on her brow. The darkness outside swallowed any view of trees or stars, reducing the world to a black void. "What happens at the next stop?" the woman whispered, her voice quivering like the old train's metal frame. The figure leaned closer, its face a mask of glee. "Each stop reveals what you desire most, but you must pay the toll. Fear is currency here, and you're still carrying plenty." The humming intensified, echoing through the train compartment, mingling with the woman's shuddering breath. Captivated by both terror and dark intrigue, Sarah felt her gaze drawn to the figure. "What toll?" she asked, a flicker of defiance breaking through her fear. "Fears must be confronted," it replied, eyes glittering with malice. "You see, on this train your darkness is exposed. The toll is your past. Not only what you know, but what you've suppressed. Only then can you understand the true weight of your own despair." With each word, the air thickened, cloying and suffocating. Sarah's heart thudded heavily against her ribcage as her mind raced through memories, moments buried deep, things she wished she could forget. The laughter returned, now a sinister background hum, entwined with the looming threat of her unaddressed regrets. Suddenly, the train slowed, steam hissing through ancient pipes. A sign flickered to life ahead, momentarily catching her eye. "Next stop, confrontation." The compartment lights flickered ominously. Shadows danced, pulling at her sanity. "Get ready," the figure hissed, a grin splitting its face wider, revealing jagged teeth that shimmered like glass. "Embrace the toll. The darkness will show you your greatest fear." "What's going to happen?" the woman cried, and Sarah's stomach twisted at the urgency in her voice. "Face it or lose it all," the figure replied, and with a sudden shattering of sound, the train jerked to a stop, metal screeching and grinding like a tortured beast. Heat exploded in the cabin as the compartment doors tore open, a gust of wind rushing in, carrying with it the stench of rot and despair. Outside, a fog had rolled in, thick and suffocating, swirling with shadows. "They're waiting," the figure laughed, taunting them. "Step outside, and let your past greet you." It will unwrap the truth in these haunting depths. With a pounding heart, Sarah looked at the woman, fear mirrored in both their eyes. They had come too far to turn back, but stepping off the train into the mist was like walking into the jaws of a beast. Together, Sarah offered, her voice less certain than she wished. We step together. The woman nodded, and they both moved towards the open door. The thick fog curled around them like a lover's embrace, promising both danger and revelation. As they descended the final step, whispers floated around them, each one dangling a memory just out of reach. Remember, the figure's voice echoed behind them, teasingly close. Whatever you confront will not be what you expect. It wants to consume you, be careful. Chilled by the promise, Sarah took a breath, the air burningly cold in her lungs. The mist pressed against her skin, heavy and suffocating. She let the fear wash over her, the urge to flee battling the conviction to press on. And in that moment, the ground shifted beneath their feet. A shadow lunged from the fog, a silhouette of something that once was, revealing the price they had to pay. Sarah's scream caught in her throat as the darkness rushed forward. What awaited them in that fog? Would facing the past lead them to freedom, or bind them to something darker than they had ever known? The darkness erupted around them like a storm, an all-consuming rush of dread that clawed at Sarah's mind. A figure emerged from the swirling mist pasty, gaunt limbs twisting in unnatural angles. It moved with the jerky motions of something long dead, and its eyes were voids, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Sarah, a familiar voice slithered through the air, faint but unmistakable. The last word she expected to hear. Help me. Panic sliced through her. She recognized that voice. It belonged to her brother, Tommy, who had disappeared years ago. Memories flooded back with the ferocity of a crashing wave. The laughter at their silly games. The terrifying night he vanished without a trace, swallowed by the shadow of their hometown. All those things she had buried deep, pretending they never existed, now they bubbled to the surface like rotting debris. Tommy, she shouted, stepping forward instinctively, though every ounce of her instinct screamed for retreat. The figure twisted further into the fog, morphing as it moved, shadows flickering to reveal a glimpse of his youthful face. I can't leave, you have to set me free. Sarah. Don't. The woman behind her croaked, her voice trembling as if she too recognized this horror. It's not him. It's a trap. But the weight of longing anchored Sarah. An uncontrollable urge tugged at her heart, urging her to believe. Tommy wasn't gone. She had to save him. The figure lunged closer, the mist thickening as it beckoned her in. I've been waiting for you to face it. Face us. In that moment, all the memories of joy and pain tangled into a living nightmare, each overlap intensifying her anguish. The burden of guilt crashed over her in waves, how she had abandoned him after that fateful day, never truly believing. Tommy, I'm here, she cried, heart racing, tears streaming down her cheeks, each sob echoing in the ominous fog. Tell me what to do. Face your fears or lose it all. The figure mocked, its voice contorting, becoming something more sinister. It was everything she shunned, every moment of guilt, failure, and grief materializing in that monstrous form. I can't. The words spilled from her lips as the figure lunged again, now a mere breath away. She could almost touch it, could almost feel the connection she thought she'd lost forever. Then, with a burst of clarity, a thought pierced through the haze. This wasn't her brother. She turned to the woman, whose fear mirrored her own, and felt their grasp on reality slip. What do we do? Away from the fog, they stumbled backward, still holding on to each other. The laughter twisted into screams, transforming from warmth to something chillingly familiar. If they wanted to escape, they had to confront their depths, something neither wanted to acknowledge. But the fog thickened and the shadows swelled as the figures multiplied around them, faces of everyone they lost, everyone they feared facing in the light of day. Fight it! The woman shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of their memories. We need each other. With a renewed vigor, Sarah glanced back, gripping the woman's hand tightly, grounding each other in the sea of memories. The fog swirled violently around them, but a whisper of determination steadied her breath. We can do this. We must. But the darkness crawled closer, and Sarah could feel the suffocating weight of her torment encircling her throat, squeezing tighter with each passing second. The figures stretched out their arms toward them, voices merging into a cacophony of despair. And then she saw it, the glimmer of a bright light breaking through the heavy curtain of darkness. An escape move. Now, the two of them surged forward, driven by desperate hope as they plunged toward the light. But would it reveal salvation or cast them deeper into the abyss? Just as they reached the edge of the light, an ear-shattering scream ripped through the air. Time seemed to stand still, and as they crossed the threshold, the train itself shivered violently, rattling them to their core. What would they find on the other side? Would their fears continue to haunt them, or could they finally emerge unscathed? The tension of uncertainty gripped their hearts as they stepped into the unknown. The harsh light enveloped Sarah and the woman, blinding them momentarily. They instinctively shielded their eyes, hearts racing, every sense yearning for safety. As their vision cleared, they found themselves standing on a platform, wood rotting beneath their feet, yet bathed in a merciful glow. The stench of decay lingered in the air, heavy and thick, but the shadows, for the moment, receded. Is this real? The woman murmured, scanning their surroundings. Reality felt like a fragile illusion. Farther down, the train, its metal slick with moisture, stood abandoned, wheels caked in rust. The engine's heartbeat had gone still, as if it, too, awaited the conclusion of this harrowing journey. Maybe we escaped, Sarah breathed, the slightest shimmer of hope dancing in her chest. Maybe we broke free. The woman shot her a doubtful glance. Free? From what? The darkness doesn't just vanish. Even in triumph, Sarah felt a tremor in her veins, a flicker of anxiety that refused to leave. No, we have to be strong, she insisted, pulling the woman back to the present. In that moment, the memories flooded back. The darkness, the laughter, the claws reaching for them. Their fear could never truly die, but it could mean something more. A chance to confront what had been lost or shunned. Sarah, we need to face what we found in the fog, the woman urged, eyes wide with the weight of realization. Those figures, they were our fears. Burdens we haven't carried in a long time. Can't end like this. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah felt the shadows shudder behind her thoughts, dark corners hiding long-held grief. But how? The woman's brow furrowed with determination. By confronting them, together. Resolute, they turned back toward the train tracks. The ground felt cooler beneath their feet, and as they stepped forward, a rustling echoed in the trees bordering the platform. Figures appeared again, but this time, they looked different, less like monsters and more like memories. Faces she once held dear yet lost along the way. Tommy, she shouted, but the figure was just beyond reach, beckoning her to step forward. She hesitated, dread constricting her throat. Don't linger, the woman urged, watching as the figures began to swirl, a cacophony of all that had haunted them, together in a dance of sorrow and resolution. Think of all that you've fought against. Find your strength. Sarah's heart collided within her chest as she stepped closer. The ghostly images shifted and shimmered, memories washing over her like the tide. The laughter from her childhood, shouts of joy, fights over toys, then darkness. Tommy's disappearance, guilt over not having saved him. No, she screamed, rage igniting within. You will not hold me. I faced the dark. I am not afraid. In that instant, she felt a surge of strength lift her. The swirling figures paused, as if sensing her resolve. In tandem, the woman spoke up. You are part of this too. Every moment you've ignored. Open your heart. Let them go. And then it broke the bindings of fear that had kept Sarah shackled for so long. She moved forward, lunging for the figure of her lost brother, every ounce of their shared history pouring through her. I love you, she yelled. I've carried your absence too long. It's time to let go. The figure morphed, grasping at the past with vulnerability before slowly dissipating into the air. Feel it, the woman urged, stepping alongside her. Release what doesn't serve you. With unwavering determination, Sarah saw each memory swirling like dust, fading into stars before her. The darkness shivered, murmuring with discontent. But as she faced them, it diminished. One by one, their fears unspooled, leaving behind warmth, light, and clarity. The woman stood steadfast, and together they uncovered strength in their vulnerability. The air crackled, resonating with a power neither could fully comprehend. The darkness retreated, shadows buckling beneath their combined force, seeking refuge from the growing light. Now, the woman cried, arms raised in solidarity. Together, as they shouted in unison, "We are not afraid." Light exploded around them. A vortex of bright energy surged forth, consuming everything within reach, banishing the darkness to mere whispers in the night. As the light dimmed, they were back on the platform, a quiet calm enveloping them. The faint echo of laughter lingered, but now it felt soft, nothing but a fading memory. "Is it over?" the woman asked, breathless but unbroken. Sarah looked around, absorbing the stillness. "I think we chose light," she replied, a gentle smile breaking across her lips as they turned away from the shadows. A new dawn began to unfold. Stepping onto the desolate platform together, they felt the weight lifted from their shoulders, ready to embrace the future. With renewed trust between them, they walked away side by side, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that together they could weather any storm, any darkness, finding light within one another every step of the way. The road was long, but it held promise, and they were no longer bound by the ghosts of the past. And in that moment, they knew this was the start of everything anew. Now that you've reached the end of this chilling tale, don't let the adventure stop here. You need to hit that subscribe button immediately because exciting new stories are coming, and you don't want to miss a single one. Smash that like button now if you enjoyed this journey and want to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What did you think? Your voice matters in our community. And wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to join in on this thrilling conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions. And we can't do it without you.